What's up, guys? Day 5 of quarantine, which the CDC says is recommended amount. It's Garage Goons, episode 14, the most trash show on YouTube, guys. Welcome back. Obviously, we're here to talk about Francis Ngannu. Wow, what an event UFC 270 was. You had the epic battle between Francis and Ngannou. A lot of people thought that was boring, but I thought it was masterful. And both guys did a lot of things really well. And then you had the 125 men's division title fight again. Brandon Moreno and Davidson Figueiredo. A lot of people said Moreno got robbed. I got to watch it back because I had Moreno 3 rounds to 2. But it's the classic case. And you see this, I feel like, happen in the UFC more so than in boxing, where one guy is landing more consistent, more often, crisper punches, but the other guy, every time he hits, it looks like it hurts. And so I think that's what you have, and I think that's going to continue to be the case because if you look at their matches, I think the most dominant win obviously came from Brandon, but because he got a finish. But what I would say is that anytime someone can inflict major damage, the judges, they can look at the numbers all they want and they can see it after the fight and all that stuff, but they're not going to go purely off of numbers, which in some ways, I mean, that's what makes the sport kind of objective versus like football or basketball, where everything that we can super slow-mo every replay, everything is dissected. Hey, in MMA, everything's real time, man. So the way the fight is scored in real time is what you're going to get. And in a lot of ways, Moreno versus Figueiredo is similar to Ngannou versus Gane. Now, this was the type of match the UFC loves. Dana White loves this stuff. Former teammates, they try to pitch them as friends, although it kind of seems like they were more acquaintances. Like they wanted the Jon Jones versus Rashad story, or the Tito versus Chuck story, and they didn't really get that, but there was enough there for the media to kind of spin it to where, oh, these guys were training partners. Well, it turns out they sparred a few times. Ngannou left his coaches and moved on to greater, to different things. Well, maybe he wanted to live in the U.S., I mean, to be honest, the UFC is a U.S.-based company, and you're going to get the best marketing advantages by living in the U.S. I mean, it's really unfortunate when you think of it, like how much bigger of a star globally Anderson Silva could have been if he had lived here and, did a lot of commercial stuff. I mean, he's before the UFC went to Reebok exclusively, I believe him and Jon Jones were the 2 guys that got Nike contracts. Now, it turns out that's the exact time when the UFC's like, oh, man, these guys are getting way too much money. We need a cut of that cake. So they X'd out, that whole thing and went to the Reebok kit. Now we're on Venom. At least Venom is a combat sports brand, that's synonymous with combat sports. When I think Reebok, I still think Allen Iverson, so take from that what you will. But what I really wanted to get into was the dynamic was setting up perfect. These guys, they know each other. One of them is this big brute powerhouse, and the other one is this very fluid, bouncy, light on his feet, moves like a welterweight, as Daniel Cormier likes to say all the time. I don't know if he moves like a welterweight. I would say he moves like a middleweight. I think that's fair. I think welterweights are probably a little bit more spry than Cyril Gane. And everything, if you think about it, was developing in Gane's favor. Vegas had him as a favorite. a lot of experts had him as a favorite. They thought that Gane was too skilled, too too mobile, too fluid. He was going to dance around. I think a lot of us expected Gane to dance around Ngannou taking wild punches and missing a lot, and then Gane eking out a decision. I think that's what a lot of people saw. And I'm one of those people. I'm guilty of that. I thought Gane was going to win. I am the worst fight caller, guys. If you want to win fights, I had literally everyone that lost on this card. I thought Gane was going to win. I thought Moreno was going to win. I am the worst, guys. And I watch this stuff more than anybody I know. So, and that just goes to show how competitive it is. And I like it for that. The UFC is, the talent level is so rich and deep that there's no division where you can say, okay, nothing's going to change forever. Nothing, this is how it's going to be for the next 5-10 years. I mean, we saw that a little bit. We might have that, with Kamaru. But, I mean, outside of that, being a dominant champion is getting more and more rare. There's so many less Anderson Silvas out there. There's so many less GSPs. Well, Tyler, what about Israel Adesanya? Izzy could lose, guys. We just saw arguably the greatest combat athlete ever, Amanda Nunes. Okay. Maybe she's not for you number one, but she's got to be in everyone's top 5. I mean, the hit list is crazy. Valentina, Cyborg, Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey. I mean, any woman, female in MMA that you can think of that's major, that fought at one point at 135, Nunes is starch to them. I mean, the only one that was giving her any kind of competition was Shevchenko. And, Shevchenko's not naturally a 35er. They had to basically open up a 125-pound weight class for her. So before I go too much off of a tangent, I say all that to say no one's invincible. Even Jon Jones, man. Watch back that Dominic Reyes fight. And, hey, Sparky. And you will see that, man, I mean, John got the judges on that one, but I felt Dominic won 3 rounds. One thing that is scary to think about, and one thing why the one guy I think that could dominate for a long time, Sparky, get out of here, man, is Ngannou. And here's why. And he has 2 more mountains to climb. If he defeats 2 guys, okay, if he defeats 2 guys, it's over. It's over. He's going to run the division. Well, first of all, we don't even know if he's going to sign back, right? There's a whole boxing talk. I don't buy it. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think UFC always tries to play hardball. They did it with Nate Diaz. Remember, he's not a needle mover. Remember that whole deal? And then he fights Conor, and then he's like this big superstar now, and they have to pay him whatever he wants, basically. And he fights once every other year. Like, I think Ngannou kind of demands that now, because if you don't have Ngannou in your division, you don't have the best heavyweight division in the mixed martial arts. Point blank, period. To me, Stipe Miocic is the heavyweight GOAT of all time. A lot of people say, what about Fedor? Fedor was fighting dudes that didn't know. I mean, Pride was still the Neanderthal infantile stages of MMA. Okay. And Fedor is definitely, 2 or 3 for me. But if you think about the guys that Stipe Miocic beat, again, the hit list is crazy. Daniel Cormier, the current champ, Francis Ngannou, Junior Dos Santos, Alistair Overeem, Fabricio Verdum. I mean, these are Fabricio. Everyone wanted to say after Fabricio beat Fedor that Fedor's over the hill. Well, no, actually, he wasn't over the hill. He went on to win a lot more fights after that. He's just the first guy that got him. You can't just say this guy's in his prime, this guy's the best, and then when he loses, oh, well, he's over the hill. No. Some guys just get beat sometimes. Some guys age out of it, but like to me, watching that fight, it looked like Fabricio caught him. And I'm rambling here, but I say all this to say I think Francis is the GOAT because of just the murderer's row. The clinic he ran on all of these big names, former champs, not just of the UFC, but other organizations as well. Francis could pass him, guys. Francis is scary now. We already knew he was scary, right? We already knew nobody hits harder than Francis. They always love to talk about how nobody in combat sports has a harder punch than him. That's believable. If you've seen the destruction of Overeem that Francis did, or Rosenstrike or any of these other guys he's pummeled. Guys, think about this for a second. Gane was supposed to win. Gane had 0 injuries that we know of. He looked fluid in there. He looked good. He almost, for a second, it looked like he had a leg lock locked up. He had the ankle. He was cranking the ankle. Francis powered, moosed out of that. That's another great aspect of Francis's game that you can't teach. Is just brute force strength, right? But where I'm going with this is Francis won that fight convincingly on one leg. Ciryl Gane was supposed to be the evolution of the sport. Ciryl Gane was supposed to be the future. This is how heavyweights in the future are going to look, right? Really fluid, really great footwork, in and out of the pocket, able to strike from different angles, get in and out, be quick. This was supposed to be the evolution of the sport. And he got beat by a guy on one leg. The whole fight, I was thinking to myself, why the hell isn't Francis, bum rushing this guy or coming at him at least once? Try it once. Go crazy, throw a few shots. I know it's heavyweights and it's crazy to say, like, oh, he's not going to get knocked out, but I really didn't feel that Gane had one shot hitter quitter power based off of every fight I've seen. He's more of a finesse guy, as finesse as a heavyweight can be. Of course, any heavyweight landing the perfect shot can knock any heavyweight out. We know this. But Francis is not the take an angle, Chuck Liddell, and then crack you on the chin guy. He's the guy that's going to death by paper cuts, and eventually when a 240-pound man hits you enough time, you're going to get knocked out. That's him. Francis is one-hitter quitter, shut the lights out on you. And I was just wondering the whole time. First of all, I thought that the knee guards were peculiar because I'd never seen Francis wear them before. So I thought something could be up there, and I thought that he would attack the leg more. Gane would attack Francis's leg more, and he didn't. He threw an okay amount of leg kicks, but he was landing with the foot, so they were slapping leg kicks. They weren't thudding ones that can really damage a knee or a thigh or a calf, depending on where you throw it. And he was just, it seemed like Gane was point fighting. It looked to me like Gane was in a sparring match every single time they were standing up. And to his credit, he did win 2 rounds. I had him winning 2 rounds. But what I would say is this, man, imagine having a partially torn ACL, completely torn meniscus. That's what Francis is doing right now. Francis is beating guys, finding ways to win. Good champions win because they're just better than you. They're just better than you. They go in there, they do their game plan. And, if everything breaks their way and they're able to implement their game plan, they're going to win. Francis could go in the argument of great champions because great champions find ways to win. Oh, this isn't working today? Okay, let me go to this. This isn't working today? Okay, let me pivot. Let me in real time switch the game plan mid-fight. Francis came in knowing his knees were compromised. Okay? And so, yeah, he's not going to be able to close distance and bum rush a guy that's as light on his feet and as good as changing angles as Gane is. So now what do you do? What are some things that you can do with a semi-compromised knee? You can press a guy up against the cage. Check. He did that. You can shoot opportunistic takedowns when a guy overcommits on a punch. Check. Did that. You can work grappling on the ground and focus on big man, ground tactics, meaning see what he gives you while he's either, you're in his guard or you pass to half guard or you go to side control. He did all those things. It looked to me like he was looking for an arm triangle for a second. Gane immediately put that arm all the way up so he couldn't get his head around it. Smart move on Gane, but Gane was not able to get back up very often. He got up once, to my recollection, and you could just tell Francis was dominant on the ground. Even when Gane got a takedown, Francis found a way in his very brief grappling career to muscle out of it in a sweep. I couldn't believe he swept him. That is high-level jiu-jitsu stuff, guys. It's not easy to sweep. Sweeps, you coach them all the time. You talk about scissor sweep. You talk about getting the underhook. You talk about getting on your hip and trying to get the other guy off balance, taking their post arm away. All this stuff. And you can know exactly what to do, and it's freaking hard to sweep guys. Sweeping guys is a real high level thing to do in real time when the other guy knows how to defend against sweeps. Listen, when you're in dominant position, it's called dominant position for a reason. It's because it's harder for the other guy to get you out of that position as it is for you to stay in it or for you to advance offensively. Francis did that on one leg. And Francis, going from his old camp, which Gane trains at now, out of Paris, France, is training at American Top Team right now, which is a scary idea if you think about it. Really good wrestlers in there. Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington. Okay, he's also trained with some Extreme Couture guys. He's training with Extreme Couture guys. Randy Couture, the GOAT of Greco-Roman wrestling. You want to talk about guys being able to hold guys up against the cage and just working positions? Randy Couture fought almost every single heavyweight fight, giving up 20 pounds or more to the other guy across the octagon from him, and was able to muscle them against the cage using techniques and hold them there. It was all on display. It was all on display. And the attempt or the potential setup for the arm triangle or the head and shoulder choke, whatever you prefer to call it, to me, that says not only does Francis know how to grapple now, how to wrestle, but also he's not overcommitting, but he knows submissions that are there. Listen, you can teach anyone a rear naked choke and a guillotine in a day. That's not hard. Get a hold of the neck. Don't let go. Squeeze for dear life. Okay, obviously, I'm oversimplifying it. There's more to it than that for guillotines. There's arm in guillotines, arm out guillotines, whether you should sit up or pull back, depending on which type of guillotine you have. All of these layers to it. But ultimately, if you're going to say, all right, what's 2 submissions you could teach somebody in a day? Probably rear naked choke. That's the easiest one. And then after that, I would say guillotine. And so we knew Francis had guillotine, but a lot of guys have guillotine. It's not a hard submission to learn. Francis is learning nuanced jiu-jitsu now. That is frightening, guys. Frightening. This guy cuts weight to make 265. He's got no fat on him. You could see abs on this dude. And he's every bit of 265. Like, he probably could look decent at 300. I mean, honestly. Every once in a while in sport, somebody that is built different for that sport comes and becomes a problem, because you're taught in sports to defend against a skill set. You're taught in sports to defend against a type of build, I guess you would say, or a type of athletic prowess. But once in a while, a guy comes in sport where it's like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? He's just built different. Brock Lesnar comes to mind. He's the only other guy I can think of. Maybe Jon Jones a little bit because he's so long and rangy. But Brock Lesnar comes to mind. When Brock came in the sport and figured out what the hell was going on after the Frank Mir leg lock, or knee bar, excuse me, and he figured out what was going on, he was a problem, man. It took a real savant. Cain Velasquez, very underrated heavyweight. We all forget about him now, but I mean, outside of an injury that occurred to him, a freak injury, and then followed by another injury, like he could have been, we could still be talking about Cain Velasquez as like in the heavyweight title picture right now, but we can't right now. So Brock Lesnar, nobody knew what to do with him. After he dismantled Randy Couture, oh man, it was like, what are we going to do about this guy? Shaquille O'Neal, Lakers, baby. You've seen 7-footers before, but they all look like they're just these tall, slender dudes. You know, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, even the well-built ones were not built like Shaq. Shaq was 300 pounds and looked proportionate. You've never seen a guy. Yao Ming looks weird, man. He looks super tall. He's got a big head, but like his arms and legs look skinny in comparison. Shaq, his arms look like, if you zoom out and no one's in the picture, Shaq looks normal. But what you don't realize is that the dude is freaking 7'3" or 7'4" or something like that, 7'2", I don't know. And muscles everywhere, like built for it. He is built for it. He's one of the big men that didn't get one of these lower body weird foot injuries that a lot of these guys get because they're putting too much prep. It's because his body was able to carry that weight and it was built for that. Francis Ngannu is 265, 6'5", proportionate. I don't think you guys let that sink in. Only the guys that look like that right now are playing D-line and D-end and maybe O-line in the NFL. And that's about it. And even them, you know, they're a little bit more slender than him if they play D-end. They're a little bit thicker than him if they play D-line. He is like the perfect balance, man. And Cyril Gane, even next to him, like from the waist up, they look the same. They look similar. Cyril Gane looks buff. They both have big arms, you know, all this stuff. But look at the calves of Cyril Gane. He has those little, you know, athlete calves, those little stick figure calves. Francis is built everywhere, guys. Everywhere, man. And he already had ungodlike power. Like, of course, you see a guy like that walking down the street, you're like, I'm not messing with that guy. But then when you see him against the other toughest dudes in the world, and he's cleaning their clocks, now we have another conversation, guys, because with the potential is already there. The potential is already there. See, Gane, I believe, has more skill. Skills are developed, they're practiced, they're acquired over time. Ngannou has way more gifts. Maybe Jon Jones might be the one exception. Nobody else has had this amount of gifts, and he's still an infant in this game. Ngannou's been in this game, what, 3 years? 4 years? And started super late? This guy would have cleared every single record ever out there if he had started in his, you know, teens or his, you know, like a lot of kids start out in combat sports now. He just picked it up, man. He just said, I'm going to try this kickboxing thing and then transition to MMA. Gane is special. Excuse me. Ngannou is special. They're both special, but Ngannou is different. And the big question mark we all had going into that fight was, well, okay, we know he can knock anybody out. Like if Ngannou won by knockout, it would surprise nobody. There was 2 question marks, actually. One was his grappling game. We saw him beat Stipe Miocic the second time, And it's one thing to be able to work on takedown defense, right? And just be like Chuck Liddell is famous for using wrestling in reverse. Justin Gaethje's another guy. They're such great wrestlers, but they don't want to wrestle with you, so they use their wrestling skill not to get taken down, to be able to stand up on their feet and continue fighting. So we knew Ngannou developed that. But what I saw and what I would want to tend to credit Extreme Couture and American Top Team for is he was offensive with his wrestling. He was getting takedowns. He was pressing Gane up against the cage and not allowing him to move. He was getting top control. At one point, he advances to mount, which is really freaking hard to do, to advance to mount. Usually when guys advance to mount, the other guy's already severely hurt. They're already severely compromised. Their equilibrium's gone. They've already been taking poundings to the face. The other guy is going to advance to mount and finish the job. When you advance to mount and the other guy is still cognizant, still there, high-level jiu-jitsu, guys. High-level grappling. The other question was, well, we don't think he can go 5 rounds. He just went 5 rounds and got a decision. And by the way, finished strong. If you're going to say one of these fighters fades and the other one kind of like, finishes stronger than the other, cardio comes into play and the other guy's better in the end, what would you say? Everyone would have said Gane. It wouldn't have been even close. You said, yeah, Cyril will come on late. He'll have more gas in the tank. It's less muscles needing oxygen. It's less of less mass to carry around for that length of time. Ngannou, call it what you want. I mean, it wasn't the most fast-paced, crazy fight. It wasn't a Justin Gaethje fight by any means, but he kept a good pace. It wasn't Ngannou versus Derek Lewis, okay? There's actual shots being thrown. There's actual pursuit. Yeah, we had some lulls in there. Yeah, the crowd gets a little restless, but that's because the media pumped this up as it's going to be a rock'em sock'em robots. We're going to find out what's better, speed or power, or skill or gifts, and we're just going to let the chips fall where they may. Well, guess what, guys? He went 5 rounds. It's the second time he's gotten 5 rounds, and this time it wasn't a win. That is frightening to think about. If the UFC signs him back, which I think they will, I don't think they're going to let him go. I think they're too smart for that. And, I think Tyson Fury could sell glasses to a blind guy, but I don't think he's a personality enough, no offense to Ngannou, to really sell a boxing pay-per-view. So, I mean, anything with Fury's name attached to it is going to make 30 mil right off rip. But I just don't know that Francis. I don't know, man. I just don't feel like he has the personality. I don't feel like he's the draw that, we got from Deontay Wilder, for example. But, Fury's looking around trying to have a fight because, Anthony Joshua and Usyk need to fight. Or Usyk and somebody else need to fight. I don't remember. But either way, I think he'll be back, and I think the UFC will finally fold, just like they've done in the past with the Diaz brothers, just like they've done in the past with Conor McGregor. Anytime one of these guys gains stardom or greatness and is time to renegotiate, you always hear about, oh, well, I might leave. They're not going to pay me. They're not going to let a champion that is in his prime coming off of a win go. I don't think it happens. I know they did with Demetrius Johnson, but that's coming off a loss, even though that was a questionable call. I just don't see them. You have the best heavyweight in the world right now on your roster. Francis Ngannou goes to Bellator and destroys everybody. Francis Ngannou goes to one PFL, whatever. Take whatever franchise organization you want. Francis runs through them. It's not close. The only roster deep enough to give him some sort of competition is UFC. And I'm not sure that he's going to have close competition for long. I think he could be the one dominant guy where you're like, damn, when will this damn guy retire? When will this guy get out of here? Because he's already stronger than you. He's already bigger than you. He's already more powerful than you, and his wrestling is making leaps and bounds exponentially with his jiu-jitsu, his whole grappling. I think this change of camp, I think that obviously the camp he was at with Gon in Paris, they know what they're doing in the striking department. They got Gon and Francis Ngannu striking to another level. But I'm sorry, guys. No one coming out of France is going to be a top level grappler. It's just not going to happen. You got to go to AKA and train with the Dagestani guys. You got to go to American Top Team. You got to go to Extreme Couture. You got to go to one of these other. There's plenty of them in the States. And obviously I'm biased. You could go, train with GSP in Canada too. I forget I want to say it's 5-star, but I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. The name of his camp. But either way, overseas, you're not, unless you're going to train with the Russians or the Dagestanis or, those guys from the Russian/Middle East area that really know how to grapple, or Americans, you're not going to get top flight level grappling. And no one in the history of MMA, to my knowledge, has gone from their home country to Brazil. They've either been Brazilian and stayed there. You can obviously get grappling from Brazil because, the pedigree with jiu-jitsu. But as far as the all-around game, not just jiu-jitsu game, I'm talking Greco-Roman, freestyle wrestling, catch wrestling, sambo, all of these different forms of high-level grappling that involve more than just going for a submission, that involve position, that involve takedowns, that involve, various ways to get guys on the ground, judo, things of that nature. You got to come here, man. And he went here, and, man, it is paid off in spades. This guy is sick. This guy is so gifted, so gifted. We might not see another guy like this for a long time. You look at the heavyweight division right now. Other guys that weigh 265. Who's filling that out with no fat? Who's filling that out and looking good at 265 at the upper weight class limit? There's only a select few guys on the planet, and a lot of those guys get gobbled up by the NFL and the NBA. Because most guys that are 6'5" and strong, they'll find a place for you on the team, man. You'll start. Trust me. And the money's still better there in those sports. So we have a special opportunity, guys. We have a special guy that has come in here now, coming from working in sand mines in Africa. Potentially about to dominate the division. He's got two challenges. We need to see him. I know you guys are going to call me crazy because he's coming off a loss, but styles make fights, and you guys know this. We need to see him go against, one more time, Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, as boring of a fight as that was, won that fight, was more active, and neither guy hit each other because they both know that they can knock out a rhino, okay, with their right hands. And we need to see him fight Jon Jones. If Jon Jones comes back, he's got the domestic case. He's the worst human being that's on an active roster in sports right now that I know of. Awful role model. I no part of me likes Jon Jones for the man he is, but every part of me likes him for what he brings inside the cage. And I think that Jon Jones is I know Jon Jones is a better striker than Ciryl Gane. He's more creative. He's impossible. He's only going to engage with you when he chooses to. That's the only time guys hit Jon, outside of like one or two fights ever, is when he's decided to engage. He controls distance in every scenario. He's even got a longer reach than Ngannou, which is hard to believe, but it's true. And I think he could, especially with that oblique kick he likes to throw, that could be a problem for Ngannou. That's something that Ngannou hasn't really had to deal with in his history of heavyweight mixed martial arts fighting. No one's going to attack his oblique the way John will. You know John's going to be stomping the hell out of that thing because he doesn't want that guy being mobile for long. Guys have to be perfect against Francis for 25 minutes. Francis only has to be perfect for 1 second. So Derek Lewis, I need to see it. I know you guys are saying, well, Derek Lewis is coming off a loss. Derek Lewis lost to this guy. Derek Lewis lost to that guy. Yeah, but he beat Francis Ngannu. After Ngannu lost to Stipe the first time, so you would think he would learn his lessons. And he beat him. As boring of a fight as that was, I don't think it's boring a second time around. Derek Lewis can sell a fight. Ngannou and Lewis don't like each other. It's already written itself. Jon Jones, we don't know what's his legal situation right now, or at least I don't. If you guys do, comment below. But those are the two guys that gives him a challenge. But guys, if Francis is able to climb those two mountains and beat both those guys decisively, we are literally just waiting for another anomaly to rise to be able to catch up to him because his gifts are already beyond anybody else in the heavyweight division. Outside of maybe Jon Jones, but we can say he's in the heavyweight division, but he doesn't have a fight scheduled and we don't know what his deal is, right? And Derek Lewis has the touch of God. They both have the touch of God. If somebody in sport and somebody in the UFC, if you're going to say, well, there's actually one guy that hits harder than Francis, it might be Derek Lewis. That would be fun to watch. I don't think it's a snooze fest the second time, especially now that Ngannou feels that he can wrestle. And Derek Lewis questionable on the takedown defense. He's oddly good at being squirrely and getting back up to his feet, but he's not so great at staying on his feet. If a guy consistently goes at takedowns and Derek and doesn't get knocked out, because we saw what happened to Curtis Blades. But if you consistently shoot takedowns, you will get them against Derek. And later on the fight goes, the more tired he gets. He doesn't even want to fight 5-rounders. So, I mean, we'll see how that all pans out. But we're 2 fights away from absolute domination of the sport, guys. Absolute Michael Jordan level, Tom Brady in the wheelhouse of Khabib, GSP, and Anderson Silva for conversation of greatest fight and Amanda Nunes for conversation of greatest fight athletes of all time. And I predict if he comes back to the UFC and he gets that knee healed up, he is going to be a problem for a long time, guys. A long time. Sustained dominance. He might be able to go on a run that is historic. Historic at this point. So yeah, that's my take on that. UFC 270 was dope. Garage Goons episode 14, last day. Sorry if I sound congested, it's because I am. Last day of quarantine tomorrow. We'll find out if I test positive or negative. Hopefully it's a negative test at that point. But yeah, you guys are awesome. Let me know how trash the show is. I mean, we are continuing our absolute scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as production, as far as content, as far as hosts. Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to film a lot more. I told you guys I was going to get more active. These 2 videos were 4 days apart. Let's do the damn thing, baby. Let's go. UFC 270, Francis Ngannou. Will Jon Jones come back? We don't know. But I'm going to be talking to a lot more people, bringing a lot more guests. I know I always make these promises, but it's going to happen. All right. All right. I'll see you later, Garage Gangsters. That is going to do it for me. End the stream.